So on to the next part now. We have the information stored, and now we want to create a function to display that information. So I'm going to go back to my main function now. I'm going to have a function that displays all details. Now this doesn't have any variables that we need to return, so I don't have to have the same idea above where we had something equals because there's no return value. So this one I'm just going to call it display all details, but this one's different in that it needs the data we want to display. So I'm going to pass it the electricity data, which means that this function has the ability to display that data. I'm just going to hide the read file because we don't need it right now. I'm going to try to anyway. There we go. And create this new function now, which we've called def display all details. You can see here, and it's receiving electricity data. Now I could take the same name here. I could use X. It doesn't matter as long as you know that this is a local copy we receive of electricity data, and if we change it, it's got no effect on the local copy within the main function. So just to make it more obvious, I'm going to call it display data and colon. And what we need to use is our print functionality to print out a nice table format so that it's formatted nice and neatly. So I'm just going to check and get a neater version of that. Let's see. So we want to do a print, and looking at our CSV file, we have the country, and then we have the number in millions, and then we have the value. So here we go. And for that, we need to type out this tricky code that's going to do all the formatting for us to limit the number of characters that we have on display that we can then copy paste for the next line just to speed things up. So T1, let's just go for 10 characters with that one, and then another tab for the second object, and we'll just go for 10 characters in that one, and another one for the third item that we are going to just give, and that is, we don't need many characters for this. In fact, we only need those 3. So that should be fine. We have the comma, and we want to dot format. And for that, looking at what we've got the country, and then we have population, which I'll just put population M for millions just to be quick, and then it's finally the spend. And I'm just going to run that, and hopefully you can guess that it should just display that title if there's no problems on it. Let's see what the problem is there. Oh yeah, and I've missed a bracket here, which is the problem there. So you can see we've got it nicely spaced out on the tables. Now that's one thing that you're going to have to remember if we're going to get nice and neat tables. It is actually quite tricky to remember. I had to look it up myself there. So we'll find out whether we can, how we'll get that into our coursework if we actually require it. So let's put some comments on there so we know that, we know what's going on there. We can back at it later on. So we want to display header, and then we want to, for all records in the list. So our list here is called display data, so we can use the regular loop for I in range 0 to the length of display data, and then for each of those display record details. So we can steal the line we had previous, leave the first part the same. Now the country, hopefully you'll notice, is in display data, and it's at I for the first coordinate, if you like, the first index position, and then 0 holds the country. Now you'll know this is a string, so we don't have to format it. So let's see how that looks. You can see we've got Spain appearing, but that pop appearing every time. Now the next one is display data, also at position I, but then we want to display the population from index 1. Now we'll get an error this time, or we should. Well, it's worked okay. If you find yourself getting errors, it's normally because these are integers and strings. So you would then have to either convert it to an integer and string and vice versa. If we're going to do calculations with it later, we probably have to convert it again. So right now, because they're all strings, we haven't changed them. We can just display them. So we'll change display data position I, but this time position 2. And running it this time, you'll see that it displays all the information fine with no problems, except we said we wanted it to be alphabetically sorted on name. So in this instance, we need to then sort our data. So we need to go back to the main function. We want to sort all records. Now in this instance, we're going to send and receive the data into a function called sort records. So it takes a parameter and returns it. So we're going to get this list back that's been updated. So we're going to create now our third function that I'm going to call sort records. And again, just the local name for it, I'll call it display data again. Now it's local, it's totally different from the one we created previously. And now we are going to use sort functionality on it. So we can use bubble sort, merge sort, whichever one you would want to use to work on that. Let's see. So we're going to need a temp variable, which we'll just set equal to a blank array right now. And we want an outer and an inner loop. So for outer in range 0 to the length of display data this time, which is our local name. For inner in range 0 to the length let's check this one again, sorry. Let's check this is correct. For inner in range 0, these are -1, that's wrong. Can't go to the end one. Length display data -1, and that's because of the way we do this swap, where we are checking if display data at I, which is the current one, at position 0, which is the country name, is less than display data at I plus 1, but at the 0 index, I obviously need the if there, then we want to swap those items. So we can say temp equals display data at I, we want the full item, display data that I equals display data I plus 1. Now we're not putting the 0 because that would just swap the words Spain and Italy. It wouldn't change the data that they're storing. And then that one equals the temp. And finally for that part, we are going to return display data. Now hopefully we've got no problems. Now the reason I'm getting so many errors is because I'm using I and not inner. Finally inner again. And let's see what is our display data. So I'll get spelling mistake here. Next one, display data, same spelling mistake again. And same one here. Now hopefully this works this time. When we run it, we should hopefully have it set up in the wrong way, and that was because I didn't think carefully enough about this one. If the current one is less than it, and it has the higher number, so I've got that the wrong way around, the greater than less than. That would be great if you spotted that before I did. And you can see that it's now sorted in correct alphabetical order of country. If we wanted to change it and do it on population, we would possibly get an error just by changing those first things. So instead of doing 0, let's change this to 1. And this should sort it on population, but will possibly not work correctly. It worked okay. Now I was expecting an error because this was comparing two strings together. Let me change one of these quickly and see if that has any effect on it. Okay, it seems to work. If you find yourself getting errors with any of those parts, it's because it would be comparing the values that are strings. So let me fix that back to alphabetical order of the country name. So go ahead and copy that. You can see it's in alphabetical order and displaying correctly so far, and we've got 2 of the main parts finished.